dismembered, decapitated. It's probably because you're trying to hide something and make sure certain details don't come out.
Tend to Life with Elise.
Hey everybody, welcome back. My name is Elise and this is Tend to Life. If you are brand new stopping by for the first time, don't forget to hit that subscribe button below. And if you are a returning subscriber, thank you for coming by and catching up on where we're at with all of these cases. So over the last few weeks, a lot has taken place in the Summer Wells case. There have been several interviews, which I'm sure most of you are aware of. And these interviews are with key players who were closest to Summer that last day that she was seen. And for those of you who aren't familiar with the Summer Wells case, go ahead and hit my playlist for Summer Wells, but she is the missing 5-year-old out of Tennessee. And we're going to talk about the key updates today because, as I was saying, these key players who were the last to have seen Summer have now been interviewed, and what came out of those interviews are quite a few discrepancies, in my opinion, and a lot of various statements that not only conflicted with each other, but also shed some new light on some information. So we're going to talk about all of it. I'm going to keep today's video short and sweet and share with you what I feel the biggest discrepancies are and that law enforcement should be looking into, in addition to now the major red flags that are out there waving for me. And we all know I always look at my red flags and I always talk about my red flags. So before we jump into those details, let's have a quick word from our good friend, our dear sponsor of today's video, Magellan TV. Magellan TV is a new kind of streaming service. They have over 3,000 documentaries available to stream and all different type of genres. I personally always find myself, of course, in the true crime section, but they have everything for everybody. And what I love so much about them is that I can always find something new to binge because, as I was saying, they have over 3,000 documentaries and they're always adding new content. Right now in my queue is Whispers in the Dark, and I'm really looking forward to watching this because I remember hearing about this case several years ago, and it's a case that took place in 2007 where a man was keeping 2 young girls covered in this large burrow, and I always just find different cases like that extremely fascinating. One of the best parts and advantages of Magellan is that you can stream literally from anywhere and any device. You can stream from your computer, your laptop, your iPad, your phone, anywhere, anytime. They make it that easy. And because Magellan is such a great, amazing partner of the Tend to Life channel, they are offering all of you a free month trial. All you have to do is click that link in the description box below. So go check out Magellan. I know a lot of you already have because you always are sliding in my DMs telling me how much you love it. But if you haven't checked it out, do not sleep on it and go check them out today because you will be equally, if not more, obsessed as I am. Thank you, Magellan, for being such a great friend of the channel and for sponsoring today's video. Now let's get into these red flags. As I was saying, after all of the interviews and all of the speculation and conversation that's going on in these Facebook groups, because if you're a part of any of those Facebook groups, you know exactly what I'm talking about. But after all of that, you would think that new information would come to light. But we haven't gotten any more answers. In fact, we are just getting more speculation, more allegations, and what we're going to talk about today, more discrepancies and red flags. As I'm sure most of you are aware by now, Chris from the interview room did some fantastic interviews with these key players. And if you haven't had a chance to check them out yet, I highly suggest you do because they are very eye-opening and you get a glimpse into the firsthand accounts from these people who were the last to have seen Summer and also into their daily lives. And I personally found it very, very fascinating. And it actually, for me too, shifted a lot of my opinions about where I first stood with the case. The interviews were very well done. Chris was extremely compassionate, very objective, and really utilized those interviews as a means to allow these people to share their story and their point of view and version of events from that day. And it was done very well, in my opinion. And I also think kind of strategic because based on the way that he just opened the doors of communication and allowed them to share and speak, that's where it started to uncover all of these various discrepancies and the red flags that we'll be discussing, because he really just let them roll with it. And as they kept talking, as they kept sharing, that's now how we have all of these different pieces of information to where we can say, that doesn't really tie together. Wait, why doesn't this story match? Why is this different from what he was saying? And I found that to be, in my opinion, again, just strategically done and very well done. A lot of these discrepancies that I'm going to outline for you too are minor. You wouldn't really necessarily make much of them if you just heard them regular day to day. But when you start to add up just how many discrepancies there are, and for such minor details that they really shouldn't have any sort of various stories, that's when the alarms start going off for me a little bit. We start with Hunter, and we know Hunter was with them at the swimming hole that day and that he is a family friend. And it just gets a little weird in my opinion, because Hunter states that Candus, Summer's mom, is the one who texted him while she was with her mom at the hospital saying, we can come pick you up, we can go to the swimming hole, all of these things. But yet Candus is the one that had been sticking by the story that Hunter texted her, saying he wanted to meet up and he wanted to hang out. So first of all, why is there a disconnect with the very beginning statements of this story of who texted who? Hunter also states that Candus told him that Dawn was at work with the boys when she picked him up, and when they went, that she said, yeah, Dawn's at work, he's with the boys. Yet later, we know that Candus says that the boys were at home when Summer allegedly went missing and was abducted or wandered off or whatever happened to her that evening. She said that the boys were at home and Dawn was still at work. So were the boys ever with Dawn at work? If so, at what point did Dawn bring them back home and then return to work? Were all of the boys at work? I mean, this just, again, opens a lot of questions. Twisted tea is another big point of conversation because it is an alcoholic beverage, and it was said that originally it was said that Candus had purchased this twisted tea for Hunter, and we know he's underage. Well, Hunter has also said that she purchased that for him along with some vapes and things like that when they stopped at the local mart. Yet Candus, in her interview, says that she purchased it for her mom. Now, I don't want to read too much into this, and I'll explain why in a little bit here, but it's my personal belief that the reason she's saying she purchased it for her mom rather than Hunter is because she was scared to get in trouble for purchasing alcohol for a minor. I don't know that there was necessarily malicious intent behind that false statement, or that she's trying to cover something up. I think it's more as a means to protect herself, but I'm going to get into a little bit more detail of that in just a minute here. In the interview with Hunter's mother, Allie, she says that when Candus returned Hunter after swimming, that Summer was in the back seat asleep in the car, that she wanted to go and say hello, give her a hug, but that she was sleeping. Yet Candus, in her interview, says that Summer was not sleeping, that Summer was awake when they dropped Hunter off. If you're walking up to the car, in my opinion at least, that's a big discrepancy to see a child and know if they're asleep or awake. And there's already been so much conversation about, was Summer alive in that car? Was she not? What happened at the swimming hole? So the fact that these points in the story are not matching raises alarm for me. In Hunter's interview, he also says something that stuck out to me. He says that while he was with Candus, she got a phone call from Dawn saying that there was a man lurking around the property and stalking the children. Now, I wonder how true this is, and what are the odds that Candus would not only announce the details of that call to everyone on the very day that Summer goes missing and they push this abduction story? Could it have been a means to plant the seed as a precursor to an explanation of what was to come from the events later that evening? That's what I'm starting to gather from it, and we're going to, again, get there in just a minute. If we circle back to the twisted tea, we know Hunter says that Candus purchased it for him. Candus says that she purchased it for her mother. Yet Hunter says that Candus says she's not going to drink the twisted tea because she's driving. However, they do share the vape. Now, he says that they share the vape, they're watching TikToks together, they're scrolling social media together, all while Grandma is in the car. While this is all taking place, Summer is allegedly swimming in the swimming hole, but who's watching her is my question. We know Candus took that TikTok video of Summer swimming in the swimming hole. However, I can't help but wonder if they truly were paying close attention to her, if they're scrolling through TikTok, Instagram, social media, whatever it is, vaping, drinking, just hanging out. I can imagine you pick up your phone, you take a video, you guys are going back, like looking at videos together. So I can't help but wonder who was truly watching Summer if Grandma was in the car this entire time, and could an accident have taken place in that swimming hole? because Hunter does say that Summer went underwater at one point, while Candus is adamant that she did not. That Summer was underwater, and Allie, Hunter's mother, said that she had hit her head on a rock, and this led to a lot of speculation of a dry drowning occurring. However, Candus, again, was adamant that she never went under the water, that there weren't any rocks nearby. So my question is, not only why are these two pieces of the story not adding up, but why would somebody say that she was underwater if she never was? Why would somebody mention her hitting her head on a rock if she never was? And why would somebody then say conversely that she never went underwater? Like, it's just, everything starts to get really muddy here. And again, in just a second, I'm going to explain what my opinion is as to what I think may have happened. In Candus's interview with Chris, she makes a statement as they are walking that path to the swimming hole that stuck out for me. And I can't seem to get it out of my mind, and I would love to know what you guys make of it too. But she mentions how this is where everything starts going in slow motion for me. And I was taken aback by that because typically when a traumatic event happens or you are facing some sort of trauma, that does happen. The events leading up to it and surrounding it, they're in slow motion. It feels like time is standing still. I personally have gone through something where I had a very similar reaction. And that's how she's explaining this walk to the swimming hole. So that stuck out to me because then when you go to the version of events and you skip ahead to that evening where she talks about the gardening, the piece of candy, Summer running inside, running downstairs to the basement to play, and then the abduction or wandering off or whatever ends up happening to Summer, she doesn't skip a beat with those details. She is thorough, she is fluid in her conversation, and that is when the alleged traumatic event took place. So why wouldn't that moment in the evening be what's in slow motion versus what's happening at the swimming hole? Especially because the swimming hole is where all of these discrepancies in the stories keep happening. And that leads me to believe that something absolutely took place prior to Summer returning home. And we're going to get there. So when you look at everything as a whole, you start to see that all of the details surrounding the swimming hole and the events leading up to and after the swimming hole are what begin to not match up. You have the conversation of dry drowning. You have Hunter's mother saying that Summer was asleep in the car when Candus dropped Hunter off. You have the Twisted Tea incident. You have, all of these things that are just not meshing together, but then you have like this after story of when they return home with this disjointed gardening story, this where the boys home, were they with Dawn at work, what really happened, if they were home, did Dawn drop them off and then return to work, dogs weren't barking when Summer was allegedly abducted, like all of this uncertainty. But for me, at least, when I look at it as a whole, it all comes back to that afternoon. And a lot of things that I've been seeing too posted in the groups and in chats, Summer was with her mother from 8 a.m. to when they returned home, and then this all happened at 6 p.m. approximately. Not once in all of the details that were shared from any of the interviews did they once mention any sort of meal. And I would imagine a 5-year-old, it's of course hungry, needs to eat. They do go to Sonic and they get a Slurpee or a slushie or whatever, and maybe she's eating candy here and there, but that's a long lapse of time to not even have a substantial meal. And you would think if going to Sonic, you would get food as well if they haven't eaten all day, especially after swimming and you're hungry. I don't know. There's just something that's not sitting right with me that makes me think that this took place, whatever took place, in the afternoon. And that would explain that, the piece of the meal missing as well. Another big point of conversation is the milk jugs in the backseat of the car and the positioning that Summer was in, and then the picture that was really a video that was taken. And this doesn't really alarm me, this video, to be quite honest, because Candus in her interview mentions that she wanted to capture the position in which Summer was sleeping because she said she was sleeping like her father. She had her arms up. She thought it was cute. She wanted to capture it. And then the grandmother accidentally took a video rather than a photo. And that's why you hear them ask, is her arm still up? And I could see where that could possibly be read into a little bit. But as a mom, I personally have taken about 1,000 creepy photos of my son sleeping, especially when he's in cute or funny positions. So to me, this seems like a very reasonable explanation. Again, that's just my opinion, but I don't think there was any sinister intent behind that or any sort of cover up or trying to fabricate evidence. To me, I think it was just happened to be a fluke, and a lot of people are reading into it. Something else that I found really interesting is that allegedly more than 10 text messages were deleted between Candus and her drug dealer. One that included a message that said, "It's done." Again, now not to blindly give Candus the benefit of the doubt. However, I would imagine if CPS were already looking into the family and she was worried about losing the boys, that she would absolutely want to hide these messages and the fact that she gave Hunter twisted tea and all of these things because she wouldn't want to lose her children, especially if one is already missing. Again, I don't want to just blindly give her the benefit of the doubt, but I want to give a little bit of leeway here and not jump to conclusions. Although I will say the message saying "it's done" does sit a little bit odd with me, but again, not enough to know or to read into it further. There's a pretty big divide out there as well as far as, is this an accidental death that took place and now it's the cover-up that is sloppy, or was this something intentional? And I personally am leaning towards, I think something happened accidentally. I think it happened around the time of the swimming hole, and I think that this cover-up is becoming extremely sloppy, and that's why stories aren't matching up. There's a lot of red flags, a lot of discrepancies, and it just isn't sitting right with me. Another possibility is that after dropping Hunter off, Candus went and stopped at her drug dealer's house and went inside, did whatever she was going to do, and maybe something did happen to Summer in the car because we know it was very hot that day. And in her interview, Candus also states that she does not ever use the AC in the car. So could this have been something with a car overheating and Summer was still inside, whether that happened at the swimming hole or if that happened after dropping Hunter off? Or could this have been a dry drowning that happened at the swimming hole? Because again, remember that comment, everything's in slow motion now. Everything starts to go in slow motion. And if Hunter's account of what happened is true, and if he is being factual, that Summer did go underwater, regardless for the amount of time, that's not matching up to what Candus is saying. And that would explain walking down that path, it being in slow motion, trying to pull Summer out, trying to see what's going on when everything just started shifting. Because all of the details after dropping Hunter off does not skip a beat. It is thorough, it is precise, the recollection is there. There's a couple little things as far as where the boys home, were they not, but like the story is there to a T. Could it be manufactured and memorized? Sure. Could it be that really is accurate and that for some reason some of these key players are just lying about the day, what happened earlier in the day? Sure. I think unlikely, but again, that's just my opinion. I don't want to talk about the living conditions of the home because I know there is a lot of conversation about the room that Summer lived in after that was shown and it looking as though she slept in a cell of sorts because it was dark and there was nothing showing that a little girl even lived there. All families are set up differently financially, not only financially, but just kind of what they're used to, what they're accustomed to, what's important to them. I don't want to be so quick to judge their living conditions and the state of their income level or what they're providing to their kids to attach that as to a means of why Summer may be missing or worse, no longer with us. But I found it odd, but I just want to leave it at that. I don't want to dive too much into that because I don't think that's our place without knowing their personal situation to cast judgment on. And I know that's probably not going to be the popular opinion because I know it is such a hot topic right now and people are talking about it, but I'd rather not get into that. I'd rather get into what we do know between the interviews, the statements, and all of those various conflicting stories. Overall, I do feel like Candus was very genuine in her interview. I feel like she came across grief-stricken. I feel like she was genuine. However, that being said, I do feel like she knows more than what she's saying. I truthfully do. To me, there are just too many inconsistencies within the stories of the last people to have seen Summer that day. And inconsistencies that shouldn't be there. There should be zero consistencies, especially about such trivial details, but yet there are. And why is that? And the red flag that sticks out to me the most goes back again to that slow motion comment. I keep saying it over and over, but why in a moment in which you were all having fun and swimming be in slow motion for you if the alleged traumatic event took place that evening? Something isn't adding up there for me. And that's what I'm really hung up on. But what are your opinions after seeing all of the interviews, after hearing the current speculation that's circling the internet like wildfire? Is there anything else that stuck out to you personally that I haven't mentioned that you feel like, hey, this is a red flag, this is a discrepancy, this doesn't feel right? Let me know in the comments below and let's discuss as a group, because I know it has been a group discussion really from day one, but I'm interested to know what you guys make of all of this as well. I still can't quite pinpoint what I truly believe happened or who was involved in whatever happened to Summer, but what I will say is I believe something happened that afternoon. I don't believe that she returned home alive. That's just my personal opinion. And I believe now they're getting caught in the cover-up. And that's just my opinion. But let me know what you guys think in those comments below. I'll keep you updated as we learn more, as more interviews take place, as new information surfaces. Hopefully we get a little bit closer to finding answers and finding Summer, because now, again, we're rounding out on 45 days that this 5-year-old has been missing and unaccounted for. Where is she? Where is Summer? Thanks for tuning into today's case with me today, guys. I hope you enjoyed the coverage. Don't forget to hit that subscribe button below, give this video a like, share it where you can, and most importantly, comment below. Let me know what you think. Let's get this conversation going. Thanks so much again, guys. Until the next case, stay safe. Bye.